Between the Lines, a podcast on Jane Eyre,
where we dive deeper into the novel of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I'm Giada.
I'm Gemma.
I'm Autumn.
I'm Alyssa.
I'm Maddie.
I'm Abby.
Hey guys, I'm Gemma, and in this episode we're going to be talking about weakness and vulnerability in the book of Jane Eyre.
I'm Maddie, and today's podcast is going to be about the Achilles heel of different characters. The Achilles heel is their one weakness, based off of the legend of Achilles, who was supposed to be untouchable, unbeatable, except for his heel, which was his one fatal weakness.
Okay, to start off, I'm Autumn, and I think that Mr. Rochester's weakness is Jane, and just his lustful personality and his greed towards women. And he starts realizing this around chapter 27 when he says, "I'm no better than the old lightning-struck chestnut tree in Thornfield Orchard." And he compares himself to this tree, and I think when he does that, it symbolizes his emotional change and how he regrets his decision to try and marry Jane while still being married to Bertha. And he demonstrates how he feels that he's spiritually broken.
So, when you were discussing Jane as Mr. Rochester's weakness, I wanted to discuss Mr. Rochester as Jane's weakness because he influenced Jane by introducing a passion between them both and their relationship, and his constant pressure in wanting them both to be together, especially after Jane discovers Mr. Rochester's mistress at the wedding. And it ties together to show how Jane is unable to reject Mr. Rochester, even though his effects on Jane are always positive. So this ultimately makes him a major weakness for her. And also tying to that, Jane is unable to reject him because she eventually returns to him at the end of the book where they rebuild their relationship. And a quote that supports this is in the last chapter of Jane Eyre, where she says, "Reader, I married him," which shows her continuous yearning for Mr. Rochester even through their hardships, and her weakness and passion for Mr. Rochester drove her back to him.
Oh yeah, so I wrote a quote down that ties to that. In chapter 24, it says, "I could not unlove him, how merely because I found that he has ceased to notice me." This is when Jane realizes that her love for Rochester is not easily controlled. Even when she feels hurt by him, she can't stay away from him. This shows how Rochester is Jane's weakness, and that even though it's not healthy for her, she still stays with him.
I agree with what you guys are saying, and Rochester is definitely one of Jane's weaknesses. I believe it has something to do with her miserable childhood at Gateshead and Lowood, and because of that, she develops these feelings of inferiority and becoming desperate for that love and validation that she doesn't get, and it creates sometimes a dangerous need for love, attention, and also the cause of the comfort she seeks in Rochester.
I'm Giada, and I wanted to connect that to the orphan archetype, and in class we're doing presentations on this right now, and archetypes are ways to prototype characters and categorize them based on certain characteristics that fit with popular stereotypes in literature. And there's 12 different ones that we focus on, but I think Jane really suits the orphan archetype, especially when we're talking about how she seeks comfort in Rochester. And for the orphan archetype, they try to regain the comfort and safety of what they've never had. And Jane is an orphan anyway because she had an abusive aunt that raised her after her parents died. And she ends up becoming independent and doesn't want to feel powerless, but she ultimately does feel powerless throughout the book a lot. And since Jane is an orphan and never receives that parental love, she seeks it in an older man and that validation from someone being older, and tries to find comfort in him. And that's a big thing for the orphan, is that their goal is to regain safety or find comfort in someone or just in themselves, and she does that with Rochester. The orphan doesn't want to feel weak, and I feel like Jane really suits that aspect of being the orphan, and she ends up building resilience and being independent because she doesn't want to feel almost a powerless feeling.
Yeah, feeling vulnerable and weak.
Yeah, and she
And that causes her to like become more independent in herself because she doesn't want to feel weak.
Which is all what the orphan archetype is about, being independent and
Gaining independence
Yeah.
and finding that safe place or person.
kind of taking your own road in life.
Yes. I feel like another weakness, like that suits kind of this, is that she's a woman during this time, and she's seen as like unimportant or unintelligent. Yeah.
But just like women in the 1900s were really looked down upon and they were seen as weak, and Jane doesn't want to be seen as weak because she's been perceived as that her whole life.
And she's never really had anyone, so she becomes independent.
Yeah.
I agree because that view of women during that time also ties to Jane's weakness in her mind with her idea of self-worth, because her constant struggle with self-worth, and especially towards the beginning of the story where she was still learning and her mindset was dictated by what people said to her. For example, Mr. Brocklehurst at Lowood, when he accused and criticized Jane for her mistakes, and it greatly lowered her self-worth.
Yeah. So I'm Maddie, and I think one of her weaknesses is her low social standing, as it causes her to struggle to actually get his love, as she constantly has to, well, it makes her feel bad. Like, she thinks because she's poor, obscure, plain, and little, a quote from chapter 23, that she shouldn't get his love because he has a much higher standing and she has nothing to give him. She also has to basically fight for him when he hosts a party to find a wife.
How, like, exactly do you think, like, her social standing impacts, like, her love for him? Exactly. Like, what is your take on that?
I think that it causes her to struggle to think that she's worthy of his love and that they're an okay match, because it's like a king and a servant. Like,
I see what you're saying. I wasn't sure if you thought, like, it was, like, hard for him to, like her because she's so...
Are you saying it's hard for him to like her, or are you saying that it's hard for her
to feel worthy
enough for him?
I feel like it's more for her to feel worthy because he's had plenty of lovers, so he doesn't really mind.
I feel like it could be both because he has such a high social ranking that, like, appearances for the public matter.
Yeah.
I also think that Jane's idea of being worthy for Mr. Rochester ties to what I was talking about before about self-worth, because her social standing and how she's treated by others throughout the book affects her self-worth and is a major weakness for her.
In chapter 14, I don't have the exact page number because I wrote it down on a sticky note and I can't find it, but another weakness for Jane could be her judgmental side of her. And a quote that shows that from chapter 14 is, "He is not to them what he is to me." And I think that shows how she views others' relationships and kind of judges them and thinks that her and Mr. Rochester are almost like superior to other relationships and they're better than other people. And also her morals, they let her critique other people's because her beliefs are so strong to her. Her beliefs are so strong. And this makes her kind of seem harsh to other people or unforgiving for what they believe. And when Jane is being judgmental over Mr. Rochester's relationship, she thinks that they are almost better and that his other relationships are superficial. And she's also very judgmental because she thinks that they're just connections for social status. And that kind of ties in with why she's so judgmental about her and Mr. Rochester's.
Yeah, I want to add on to what you were saying about Jane judging others for trying to be with Rochester just for his status. She specifically judges Miss Ingram, saying that Miss Ingram was a mark beneath jealousy. She was too inferior to excite the feeling. This is basically just Jane saying that she sees Miss Ingram as proud and shallow, and that she's only entertaining Rochester because she wants his money and she wants his status. Jane believes that it's critical for relationships to be based on true love, not status. I also think Jane's judgmental side also affects how she views herself, and like Maddie was saying, it makes her feel not worthy of Rochester. And Mr. Rochester's social standing also affects how Jane views herself, because she feels that she's not worthy enough to be with Mr. Rochester.
And she's not just judging herself because of Mr. Rochester's social standing, she's also judging Mr. Rochester's other relationships because she believes that they're just because of social standing and like the public image and appearance, and like that's the whole reason, and what she has with Mr. Rochester is true. So that also affects Jane.
Yeah.
Her judgment. For today's brain break, we're going to be doing imposter. So one person is going to go around and tell everyone a character, except one person gets a different character, and we have to say a word that resembles the character that we were told, and we have to figure out who's imposter.
So I just passed out sticky notes that either says a character or imposter, and everybody's going to say a describing word for the character.
Okay, Giada, do you want to go first?
Okay, I would say helpful.
Helpful, okay.
That's a good one.
Dang, I'm imposter.
Improving.
Okay. I'm going to say crib.
Crib.
If you know, you know.
Okay, guys.
Then yeah.
Suspicious.
Yeah, taking a long time over
I
there.
don't even know what to say.
A little bit of sauce.
You guys just use like 3 good words. Like I just don't know.
I smell.
I smell imposter.
Yeah, I'll just say that. Kind.
Okay. Maddie?
Dead.
I was gonna say that, bro.
I
my
vote.
God.
Are we
vote
ready
on
to
this one.
go?
We're ready to go.
I vote on this
Let's
one.
go, bro.
Yeah, it was. I didn't know what to say. Like I didn't know. Who
The character was Helen Burns
Alright, guys, I passed off the papers.
for round 2.
Yes.
Okay, I would say spoiled.
Okay.
Aggressive.
I'm Autumn, and I would say evil. Cold-blooded.
I'm Melissa, and I would say cruel.
I would say bully. And I'm
Yeah.
Maddie.
Okay, we need another round.
Related.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Young. Autumn is sus.
Yeah, see?
Yeah,
You
I'm
get
gonna
what
say,
I'm putting
I'm
down.
gonna say book.
That's what I was gonna say.
Maddie?
Something I would say for him is probably suicide.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, yep.
Okay, time for voting.
I think it's Autumn.
I think it's Autumn.
Yeah. Bruh.
Follow me like
I vote Abby.
Okay. I was the imposter.
Okay.
not
You
the
were
other
the
one.
imposter.
That's why she kept pressing about it.
Well, I knew it was gonna be him. I guessed it was him in my head, and then
Okay,
you said
it was one of you two. I knew it was only one of you two.
I thought it was you.
I just couldn't think of another word.
Yeah, I was like, evil.
The
I was
character,
like, guys.
the character
like
was
whatever.
John Reed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
John Reed.
So I'd like to move on and talk about something else. A weakness I thought was really important in Jane Eyre is isolation. Jane grew up alone, and she was rejected by Miss Reed, and she was just always treated as if she were unwanted, and she never really trusted anyone. And I think she really just kept things to herself, and she created so much self-reliance, and it really affects who she is. And not only that, she's not just emotionally isolated, but if we want to take it into social classes, she's almost isolated there as well, because she doesn't necessarily fit in with anyone who's wealthy, but she's also not considered a servant. She's in between, and I think that just puts a lot on her. And I feel like this really just makes her feel lonely and distanced from everyone, and she has a really strong inner voice because of this, and it just really shapes her character, and I think it's one of the major weaknesses that she deals with.
Yeah, it's like what we were saying earlier, that isolation that she feels almost everywhere, through her social class and with Mr. Rochester, it really affects how she views herself, and just her mental state in general. And I feel like that's just a big weakness that continuously holds her back throughout her life.
Jane was also pretty isolated at Lowood, as one of her main friends died of a sickness pretty early on. Yeah, so she was kind of just left because she wasn't very good friends with any of the other kids. So I guess it made her social interactions harder for her because she only really knew etiquette and didn't really know how to interact that well.
Yeah, and Mr. Brocklehurst, made her feel isolated too because he would constantly degrade her and all the other kids.
I agree with that, and I believe another point for what causes Jane's vulnerability sometimes is her internal conflict she has with herself. Jane obviously struggles between her passionate desires and intense desires to be loved by Rochester. And it creates a vulnerability in Jane because she risks losing her independence and moral authority to his kind of more dominant power, because that's how women and men were. That was kind of the role back in Jane's time. Women were more looked down on, the guys were more authoritative, and women didn't have a lot of independence. And that's what Jane values most about herself and always wants to keep inside her is her independent nature. Another point to go with why I feel her internal conflicts have to do with her vulnerability is her moral need to follow her religious rules, aka her religious values in life. And because of her desire to be loved by Rochester, she's kind of breaking her religious rules, and it puts her in a vulnerable place because she's trying to go after this guy who is a married man, and it doesn't go with her religious values and rules she has in her life. And that could put her sometimes in a more vulnerable position.
Yes, I completely agree. I couldn't have said it better. Okay, thank you guys for listening. I'm Autumn.
I'm Gemma.
I'm Gianna.
I'm Abby.
I'm Maddie.
I'm Lucy.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Kissing in a house at your best, time for you,